Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating and frankly pretty shocking financial anomaly at one of the highest profile, highest security institutions in India. We are going to break down exactly what happened behind the scenes at the Ayodhya Ram Mandir. Because this, well, it isn't just a story about missing money. It's a masterclass in institutional governance, the actual mechanics of an inside heist, and what happens when administrative systems completely failed to protect massive public trust. So right off the bat, here is the core mystery we're unraveling today. Where did the money go? Recently, donations at the Ram Mandir just plummeted. But here is the real kicker. There was absolutely no vandalism, no grand public outcry, no people protesting outside the gates, and zero overt disruption to the daily services. Everything looked totally normal on the surface. And yet, the funds flowing into the temple's donation boxes, the hundis, practically dried up overnight. Okay, let's dive into this. 78%. That number represents a staggering, massive drop in temple donations over a window of just 30 days. Analysts and observers are actually calling this a silent boycott. It's this incredible phenomenon where the public, kind of sensing that something is fundamentally broken behind the scenes, just stops giving. But what exactly triggered this silent, devastating financial withdrawal? Well, here is our roadmap for the explainer today. 1. The silent boycott. 2. The scale of temple revenue. 3. Anatomy of the theft. 4. Institutional and ethical failure. And finally, 5. The Tirupati structural solution. We're going to examine the facts completely neutrally here, looking at everything from how the heist actually worked mechanically to the high-level governance solutions being proposed. Section 1. The silent boycott, a crisis of faith. You know, it's absolutely crucial to understand that when people drop cash into a temple donation box, they aren't just making a financial transaction. They are making a deposit of faith, of belief, and of trust. And when that trust gets breached, the reaction is incredibly swift. Prior to this whole incident, the temple was pulling in roughly 7 crore rupees every single month in donations. But following this breach of public trust, that number crashed down to just 1.5 crore rupees a month. That is an immediate, catastrophic hit. It really shows us that for institutions built entirely on public faith, transparency isn't just some corporate nice-to-have, right? It is literally the lifeblood of their survival.
Section 2. Scale of temple revenue, managing public money.
To really wrap our heads around the magnitude of this failure, we first have to understand the sheer mind-boggling volume of wealth being handled here, because you really can't understand the administrative breakdown without grasping the immense financial pressure the system was under from day one. For the 2024-2025 financial year, the Ram Mandir pulled in a total of 327 crore rupees. Of that, 153 crore came straight from direct public donations, while another 173 crore came from the interest corpus sitting in the bank. That is a massive, truly massive pool of public money to manage for any institution, let alone one in its very first year of full operation. And this brilliantly illustrates just how fast things escalated. Almost overnight, this colossal influx of cash made the Ram Mandir the 4th highest revenue-earning temple in all of India. It sits right up there behind giants like Tirupati, Shirdi, and Somnath. Now, generating 327 crore rupees immediately places an enormous burden of responsibility on the trust. Managing that top-tier level of wealth requires world-class, completely airtight governance. Governance that, unfortunately, as we're about to see, was tragically missing. Section 3. Anatomy of the theft. The inside job. So how do you rob a high-security facility that's basically swarming with guards and covered wall-to-wall in CCTV cameras? Well, you don't break in, you work there. The Special Investigation Team, the SIT, made a genuinely shocking discovery here. This was not a one-time Ocean's 11-style heist. No, they found that 70 separate instances of theft occurred over a period of just 40 days. Let that sink in for a second. 70 times in 40 days, right under the noses of a massive security apparatus. Let's move to and see how this builds into a highly coordinated system. The SIT uncovered a precise 4-step mechanical process that the thieves used. Step 1. During the actual cash counting, one staff member would intentionally position their body just right to block the CCTV camera's line of sight. Step 2. Using that cover, another worker would just slide bundles of cash off the table and straight into their pockets. Step 3, rather than risking walking out the main security doors with the money, they'd hide the cash inside the temple washrooms. Crazy, right?
Investigators actually recovered 2.5 lakh rupees just stashed away in a washroom. And finally, step 4. After their shifts ended, they would safely retrieve the cash and divide it up outside.
Now, the investigation highlighted a few key players. First, you had Tinu Yadav, a former driver who somehow had physical access to the donation box keys. Then there's Subhash Srivastava, the counting in charge, who actually bypassed rigorous vetting and was hired through a personal recommendation. But honestly, the most tragic figure in all of this is Mahapal Singh. He was an account supervisor, and he was the whistleblower who actually stepped up and reported these missing funds. And what happened? Instead of being rewarded for his integrity, he was fired. And that right there is what shifts this story from a simple theft to a massive systemic institutional failure. Section 4, Institutional and Ethical Failure, Beyond the Crime. You see, catching the thieves is one thing, but understanding why the environment allowed them to thrive, that's the real lesson for us here. The environment was basically custom-built for theft because standard operating procedures, SOPs, were just blatantly ignored. The formal cash handling SOP was inexplicably delayed and wasn't even scheduled to be rolled out until 2025. On top of that, CCTV footage, which by strict rules should be preserved for 180 days, was being wiped after just 45 days, effectively destroying critical evidence. And maybe most unbelievably, the fundamental rule requiring staff in counting rooms to wear pocket-free clothing, completely ignored. It was just the perfect storm of administrative negligence. To fully grasp the fallout here, we need to introduce a really important concept in governance called the Westminster Model of Ministerial Responsibility. Basically, this is a principle stating that the head of an institution holds ultimate moral responsibility for any administrative failures that happen beneath them. So even if the top officials aren't legally culpable, meaning, they didn't physically pocket the money themselves, they are entirely ethically responsible for creating the flawed system that allowed the theft to happen in the first place. And we actually saw this exact academic principle play out in reality. Following the SIT investigation and the public exposure of these massive systemic flaws, General Secretary Champat Rai and Trustee Anil Mishra both resigned. They stepped down not because they were the ones stealing, but purely on ethical and moral grounds, formally acknowledging the ultimate administrative failure that occurred under their watch.
Section 5. The Tirupati Structural Solution, Fixing the System.
So the crucial point is, how do we prevent this from ever happening again? We can't just sit here and point out the flaws. We have to look at the real structural solutions needed to secure public money and win back that trust. And the answer really lies in comparing governance models. Under the current Ram Mandir model, you have a private trust handling both the religious duties and the highly complex administrative and financial duties. It's just way too much centralized power with virtually zero oversight. Now compare that to the incredibly successful TTD model used by the Tirupati Temple. That model mandates a very strict, very clear separation between religious duties on one side and administrative governance on the other. Drawing from those successful models, several specific, forward-looking structural reforms have been proposed. First up, professionalize the management by bringing in a full-time IAS officer, a neutral, highly trained bureaucrat to act as CEO. Second, seriously upgrade the physical security by installing strict biometric access for anyone stepping foot inside those cash counting rooms. And finally, to completely eliminate the opacity of a private trust, mandate annual, independent audits by the Comptroller and Auditor General of India, the CAG. Which brings us to our final, lingering thought for this explainer. Can faith survive without accountability? When millions of everyday people donate their hard-earned money, they are implicitly trusting the system to do the right thing. But as we've clearly seen, when institutions fail to protect that trust with rigorous modern governance, the public responds the only way they can, with a silent boycott. Strong administration isn't the enemy of faith, guys. It is the very foundation that protects it. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack this fascinating case study. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.